before I begin my talk, I would like to thank, I would really appreciate. I'm really appreciating the change makers' great effort in putting this event together and to try to bring the change makers together. And I do hope you make it a regular feature because it will benefit so many people. So today's talk actually is about India's Vision 2047 and how financial inclusion and economic inclusion is an absolute must for it's an absolute part of that particular vision. I will also like to put it under an overall arching umbrella of a sustainable development growth. This will fall under the SDG 1, no poverty. So to just put the context, sustainable development growth is a concept which was put forward by United Nations Conference in 2012 in Rio de Janeiro, and where the developing countries agreed to a set of goals which would take them towards being a developed nation. So this SDG 1 amongst them is the most important, and it is the one which is talked about everywhere. That is Sustainable Development Goal 1, which is no poverty. So this whole topic will be covering these three. So what I have done is I have kind of divided my talk in three parts. One is like what exactly is financial inclusion, economic inclusion, and how is it important for attaining the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister of 2047 and of attaining the SDG 1. That is that is one part of it, how it is important. And the second part is how India has fared in it. So that will give you a clear idea which direction our country is taking. And the third part is Sankul Capital Services, how it is adding to that vision and how we are working so as to reach that goal maybe ahead of time. So that's the general. So at the end of each session, I can give a pause, and if anybody wants to ask me a question or they want to send me a message, I will try to answer it. However, I'm available even after this session. As I said, I would like this to be a continuous process. We'd like to be in touch with you all so that we can continue this conversation further. So with your permission, I would like to start my talk. So the first is thing before I start, I would like to make a strong distinction between FI and EI. FI is financial inclusion and EI is economic inclusion. So most of the time, both these concepts are used interchangeably. They're definitely not one and the same. They are different. So financial inclusion is at the bottom of the ladder. That is the absolute, the first step towards movement of any sort. And economic inclusion could be called the next layer. So financial inclusion is a necessary precursor to economic inclusion. Without financial inclusion, no without financial inclusion, no meaningful economic inclusion will happen. So what is financial inclusion? So if you define it, there are various definitions of it. I think the best which fits the bill is that it is basically accessing universal access for 4 banking products. Just 4 products. One is a saving product, one is a insurance product, the third one is a credit product, and the fourth one is largely called payment product or remittances. So these are 4 pillars of financial inclusion. And if you talk about economic inclusion basically means having a livelihood which is paying, contributing to the GDP of the country. So it's very clear, unless you are a part of the FI, you will not be able to, kind of contribute to the EI in any major way. So having made that distinction clear, now I will, like to start by explaining Why is financial inclusion so important? So conversely, we can ask, what will happen if there is no financial inclusion? So when there is no financial inclusion, what happens is the people at the bottom of the pyramid, the most vulnerable, the poorest of the people, they are always working with the cash economy. Okay, that is one thing. And they will always be working at a subsistence level, because the growth will happen only when you are a part of the FI and the economic inclusion ecosystem. You have access to credit continuously, and you also have access to know-how, technology, all that. That only then. So without that, your work will always be, it will be just a subsistence level. You are barely surviving, hand to mouth. That is the first thing. The second thing, what will happen is, you will not be able to access any of the social security schemes of the government of India. So the government of India has like several security schemes. They will have something called a direct benefit transfer. There are actually more than 50 ministries of government of India who are implementing more than 300 schemes in which direct benefit transfer is happening for various purposes. It could be for health, it could be for education, like scholarships and all. Then, it could be plain for survival, like during COVID times, direct benefit transfer of funds were given directly into the accounts of people. So you will not be able to access. So what this will actually manifest in is utter and abject poverty, inability to come out of the vicious circle of poverty, and then always low HDIs, human development indices, and the next generation is born poor. That is the problem. Like when you're not fulfilling the first absolute step, all these things, it will, like, you will say, oh, it's only financial inclusion, what does it matter, they're not having a bank account, why the big deal? No, it's not just a bank account. It is not the inability to access these four basic services which I described as FI. There will be something far, far worse consequences. So that is, as I said, there'll be poor health, there'll be illiteracy, children will not go to school, education level, so you're always in a cycle, and you will always remain a underdeveloped or a developing nation. You will never go to the next stage of being calling yourself a developed nation. This is what happens when you are out of the fold of FI. To give you some practical examples, I'll tell you, when we started working in this area around 2014, so there were people, like women who were having some livelihood activities. They were pursuing agriculture related livelihood activities. For instance, they will have buffaloes and they will be, selling that buffalo. But everything will be cash dealing. There is no credit history. Nobody is there. It's as if they don't exist, all their activities. It is not contributing in any way to the economy. So if one of them ever fell sick, they would be like in such a bad state, the earning will stop at one end. There is no money even to get treatment on the other. And then they will be exploited in n number of ways. They'll have to go to the money lender, take money at a very high rate of interest. And we have known cases before, like earlier in the, I would say around late 90s and 2000s, we have known cases where small amount of money borrowed has actually put an entire generation into a debt. They are like bonded labors. It has put, so those are the implications. So the seriousness of not taking FI very, as seriously as it should be, the implications are like really horrible. So now, having described in detail what happens if you're not a part of FI, obviously I also said that without FI, there is no meaningful economic inclusion also. You will always be working because what happens is you will not get any amount of a credit, because you don't have a credit history. Your transactions or your activities not reflected in any arena. So it is as if you do not, you are just a ghost. You don't exist. So because of that, what happens is, even if you want some money for upgrading your tools, say you want, say you are a plumber, okay, and then you're getting good opportunity to work in near about areas which are urban or peri-urban areas. But what they want is good people who are trained little bit soft skills, and they want people with very good instruments. And because this person is not a part of FI, he does not have any he cannot go and obtain that skill training, he cannot go and buy those tools. So he will continue to do that work in that small village only and get paid sometime, not paid sometimes. So this is what happens. The circle, we have seen it with our own eyes, and we have seen people struggling only even for basics. So we have seen it for years together. So after this, I can take a small pause. If any one of you still has doubts whether FI is needed for our country, whether we need to be FI inclusive, universal FI is needed for us to achieve our target of India Vision 2047 or even SDG 1, you can raise the, you can just ask me, and I will answer if I have left anything unanswered.
Thank you, ma'am. This is Ahmed. Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Ahmed.
So there are many people, like it's very understandable that FI is a very important component, but what is also happening specifically in rural areas, that many people who are not even literate are getting, I'll say, in terms of giving misinformation or misguided because of this, and a lot of benefits gets transferred to a third party because
Exactly.
of information, right? So how can this be taken care of? What is the role of CSOs or a government or youth change makers? How can they contribute towards it so that this people can take benefit out of this?
Yeah, great. I mean, I did touch upon it. I did say that they are, subject to a lot of exploitation. I meant this kind of exploitation also. So when I come to the second part, what India is doing currently, you will be able to know how this problem is being tackled at a national level, and how change makers and how other people who want to contribute can make a, can help, right? So this will be covered in the second part of it. So now I'll come to the second part, how India has handled our FI, right? So actually, when I talk about FI in India, it's like, a BC and a AD moment. Like you have, in history, when they talk about anything, they'll say before Christ and after Christ. That's the kind of distinction, that's the kind of transformational change. I will say that Aadhaar card is that BC AD moment for Government of India. So what used to happen before is that RBI would lay down targets to the PSU banks rather. In fact, very few private banks came forward to do work in the FI. Even, I mean, like they were willing even to pay some kind of a penalty, but not get into it because it's a very tough field to get into it. So RBI would lay targets to the bank, and they will work on a mission mode, and they will do some enrollment, and their enrollment will also happen in a very paper based manner, because you will give some identification paper, then the bank has to go and verify it either from the authorities who have issued it, in mostly from the authorities who have issued it, or if they have some other supporting document corroborating with that document. Those kind of, that verification itself will take about more than 2 weeks, just to establish that you are who you are. And then after that, like the rejection rates will be so high and all sort of problems. So one person who's wanting to open an account will probably have to come to the branch 3 times, 4 times. And if I talk about rural branch or rural banking, whatever are the problems which are faced in the urban sector, the rural will, you can, multiply it some 10x. You just blindly you can multiply it 10x, because it will be a one man or two man branch, highly crowded in a very small place, no technology, all those things. This is what was happening before the Aadhaar moment. So when Aadhaar came, and what happened was RBI will also keep on giving instructions. They will say there should be no unbanked blocks. So they will keep on giving schemes for making all the blocks bank covered. But unfortunately, I was seeing in the newspaper, even now, as on date also, in Arunachal Pradesh, there are still unbanked blocks. So you can just imagine how difficult it is actually to penetrate banking services to those kind of areas. Then they started something called a lead bank scheme, where they gave the responsibility of financial inclusion on one particular PSU bank, so that they could concentrate on it and do a good job. So these were the things. I'm not saying nothing was done, but it was being done in a very business as usual way. And to be charitable to them, I would say that they did not have even a clue how to go about it in such a massive manner when the demand is so very high. So this was what was happening. So when the Aadhaar card came, the first beauty of the Aadhaar was it was a unique UID was what was the name given to it. Stands for unique identification digit, UID. Okay. And then it came with biometrics. So with these two things, what happened was a person who is identified as a person, he is unique to it. So say it's a Renuka Kumar, and Renuka Kumar has been allotted a UID, and her biometrics have been taken, and it has been put in a database. It's virtually impossible actually to kind of mess with that kind of a database. So that was the beauty of UID. So with the UID, when they started enrolling UID, and in fact, I don't know if you have heard, there's a very interesting story about UID. This was started in about 2008. It started in a small way, but 2012, a few lakhs of accounts they were managing to open with them. Then when 2014 the new government came, apparently Mr. Nandan Nilekani sought time from our Prime Minister to explain the features and the prospect, the potential of UID. And he was given 1 hour by the PMO for this discussion. And I'm told that the meeting went on for 5 hours. And the Prime Minister raised very many valid questions and sent him back with so many questions, with a lot of homework. And then, apparently, he had seen the beauty and he had seen the potential of it. And I think the decision probably to give it the rubber stamp of the government was probably taken in that meeting itself. That is my gut feeling. I was not a part of the meeting, but that's my gut feeling. So UID, as I said, has these two unique features. So with this, what happened was the vision of having a universal financial inclusion started. Before that, before 2014, nobody ever talked about universal financial inclusion. They all accepted the fact, yes, people are getting slowly empowered. Whoever is moving little up in the ladder, whoever gets more knowledge and gets more empowered will go and open his account, and this will happen in a very very slowly, and it will happen in a business as usual manner. So but when this UID came and the RBI also agreed to accept this as a founding document, they said, okay, you can accept this as a document for identification. That really changed, that I think was the eureka moment when RBI gave this. So the PMO also then started saying that now you start talking about universal financial inclusion. So with universal financial inclusion, two more things came into being. So that was the time he also talked about a no frill zero balance, which is called a Jan Dhan Yojana. So you may have heard the Prime Minister and many people, technocrats and people talking about JAM, JAM, JAM. So it, I think it's been coined as JAM, but what came before was definitely Aadhaar card, then the Jan Dhan Yojana, and then the mobile. So, but they, just for ease of convenience, I think they call it JAM. So the second thing they said was like you open these no frill accounts for everybody. And the third thing also they said that for mobile, you can accept this as a identification number. So mobile also, exploded. If I can tell something about as recently as 2016, when Reliance Jio came, they had a target of reaching 100 million people in a period of 6 months. I mean, like, crazy. How is it even possible? So that was all based on this trinity of, this Jandhan and Aadhaar. This was based on that confidence. So then the next thing which India did was that it linked all these three of them. So on the back of it, so many other things happened. Just the Jandhan, the Aadhaar card, the Jandhan account, and your mobile. These three were linked. The second hurrah moment was linking of these three things. Now what happened was and then they started giving all your social security schemes through this. Then during COVID times, all our jabs, 2 crore jabs. So all this kind of empowered or made people really, really very hopeful and excited about the potential of this trinity. So with this, I think as recently, I think that's also happened in maybe 2017 onwards, we have your UPI system, unified payment interface. So this is made like payment kind of, normally payment and remittances are what you use the word interchangeably. In technical terms, they will use the word remittance. Otherwise, it is payment only. So how UID totally change the, kind of way business is being done. So with this, what happened is once this your UID started working, they also, one policy decision by Government of India was that the digital, in order to kind of make rapid strides into digital arena, we have to make the digital infrastructure, the digital public infrastructure, what they call a DPI, that we have to the bottommost layer, that we have. Can I just take a break? I think Judith is Judith is asking a question. Considering India's demographic diversity, how can we ensure that financial and economic inclusion is equitable across different states and communities? All right. Yes. No, first of all, see, we have to put the basic blocks in place. Then we will talk about equitable across states, across communities. So at the moment, we are putting basic blocks in the place. So first, when they decided that your digital infrastructure, digital public infrastructure will be funded by the government, and on top of it, the APIs will work. The private sector will come and they will put their own software in work. Like for instance, you have UPI again. On top of it, you have Bharat Pay, you have Phone Pay, you have Google Pay. Everything works, and it is all working on the basic UPI. So that policy decision government has taken. Now they are moving on to ONDC, they are to account aggregators. So that clarity has come that for the first part, the first rung has to be subsidized in a highly big way. That should not be controlled by a private entity. It should not be something for a for-profit thing, so that it will give an unusual or an exceptional advantage to the person who has been given this power. So that is the beauty of this particular thing. So With this, I think I'll just read out a couple of numbers, that will give you how. First, I will answer this, like how financial and economic inclusion will happen universally. First, I will answer that. As I said, first you have to put the basic blocks. So I'll just give you some numbers. I noted it down. So 47.8 crore Jandhan accounts were opened. Okay, just from 2014 onwards. Then you now by RBI has come forward with a paper which says about 80% of adult population of India is now having a no-frill account, right? That is the second thing. So you can see how technology is being leveraged. So I think whether it is, derai durastai, but you do realize that without technology, without private participation, without innovation, this kind of a dream cannot happen, not on the shoulders of Government of India and bureaucrats, no matter how dedicated, committed, and good they are. This is my personal opinion. I must definitely add. Okay. Then when you talk about DBT, at the end of the day, currently they are saying, like the government schemes are doing 81 crores transactions a day, DBT. 81 crore transactions. That is one figure I would really like to emphasize. And UPI, they're saying that there are about 30 crore active users and 50 crores QR, that is the retailers, those people to whose account the money goes, 50 CR. So if you do remember this conversation when this DBT, this UPI was, visualized and it was sought to be introduced, in the parliament, there were questions like, how do you think the poorest of Indian, how do you think the sabjiwala, the dudwala, the rickshawala are going to use it? But today, everybody is using it. Even a presswala who comes to your house and takes your clothes and irons your clothes, he's using it. You can pay as small an amount as 20 rupees through this. So, it just requires some kind of a vision, and it requires that kind of a push. So with, I will say, digitization is also on the back of it, financial inclusion, everything started with that Aadhaar, and then further all these things started, and now like we are on the way. In fact, actually, what they are saying is they are expecting these UPI transactions to be 1 billion a day. Currently, apparently, there are some 1,000 plus transactions happening every second. So at India, the beauty is that everything is at such a wonderful scale that it automatically becomes viable. And there is a role for change makers in such a big way that they can just go and increase the awareness. They are like additional hands, as Amit was asking, how can change makers contribute to this? There are people who are educated, you and me. We will read about it in newspaper. We will listen to it in the newspaper. In the TV, and we will adapt it. If we can't understand it, we'll call up our friends and we'll kind of adapt it very fast. We are called the early adapters. But then there will be late adapters, those who are having learning barriers. Those traditionally they will be, the information itself will not reach them. Once the information reaches also, it's very difficult for them to comprehend. That is where I feel the change makers, in whichever way can do, if they are very proficient in language, and they can explain concepts in a very, very simple manner. What I'm talking is aimed at people who are educated, who will understand what I'm saying. But there are a whole set of people who are much below this. So for them, in their mother tongue, in their language, overcoming their learning constraints. So change makers is the first step, is making them aware of it. So that is the first role which change makers can do. Now, in order to answer how you will, ensure that this financial and economic inclusion is equitable across different states. See, it is equitable because opening of an account is automatic based on some parameters, no human intervention. And if you talk about direct benefit transfer, or you're talking about social security schemes reaching all the beneficiaries, it is equitable it is going to the accounts of the concerned people. It is not money which is being routed from the top to the bottom, or where there can be leakage. So the most equitable is this. And the moment you say that I want this to be a universal, inclusion, so then that itself, makes it equitable, that everybody is having access. Earlier, opening of an account, if it is opening of an account, if it is restricted to only those few who are educated, then that is inequitable. Now, when you make it across channel, and if you talk about different states and communities, the India's digitization chapter, it's spread like wild jungle fire. That is the exact word I would use for it. So once the awareness starts, then what happens is, like, across states. Now each state is in competition with each other. Now if you talk about UP government is saying we ourselves will want to be a $1 trillion economy by 26-27. UP government is saying. So there is an inter-se competition between the states, and Government of India is also trying to improve, and it is comparing itself with outside world. It is saying, I want to be amongst the top 3 in the next course. So that is how it will spread, and it will spread on its own, because all you will have to do is just watch where are the small gaps, and believe me, the gaps are very small, and we all are capable of filling it. All you have to do is just watch those small gaps, find solutions to those gaps, and then you will be sustainable, and the cause is also served. So that is what I'm answering. So, I mean, like, the last time I read, I mean, like, I noticed that 52% of digital transactions is now being done by UP. So UPI, which is just, it's some 4 or 5 year old baby, that is the level to which it has risen. So India's chapter is like, it all started with adoption of our, with oh my God, I'm losing track. I'm sorry. Aadhaar card with our UID. Our traction started with the UID, and now, like, there are layers and layers. There are so many. People love to talk about India's stack, and even I love to listen about it. Like, with these 3 things in place, the sky is the limit. That is the absolute truth.
So one of them asks, what are the key milestones India should aim for to ensure full financial and economic inclusion?
Yeah. Okay. See, milestones will be just that. I said 4 things. Full financial inclusion stands only for 4 things. Access to saving product. That is the first. That means you must have a saving account, even if it is 0 balance, or if it is minimum balance, or whatever. Every single person should have it. Once that happens, you will be able to access the insurance products. Some of the insurance products come to poor people as a subsidy. Some of it, because of the huge numbers, they are so affordable that you will be able to, like, if you talk about a self-help group, a group of women, if you tell them you have taken a loan of 1 lakh rupee, if something happens to you, who will pay back? So would you take an insurance for 100 rupees? They'll take it. Easily they will take it. So that is something which government has not given, but they will take it because they see value in it. So, and because India is a country of such huge numbers, the cost is so low that the insurance products will happen. And the third thing is credit. Credit is a little more tricky. I will come to it. And the last thing is payments. So once you have an account and you are able to access, once you have an account and there's some money in it, somebody or other will teach you to access the payment, because the payment UPI has made it so very easy. Somebody will teach you. So in this entire chain, the thing which is tricky is credit. Okay. So let me talk about this Sankul Capital Services. So I'm the founder member. I mean, like, I'm the founder director of Sankul Capital Services. We incorporated it on 15th of May 2021. This has been set up as a company to give last mile service delivery of banking products to the remotest of villages and to the poorest of people. So you can see there is a huge gap there. That is a place where, people will not be venturing in. Unless you do it in volumes, it is not economically viable. It is not even viable for the government of India or government structure to provide those services. So the entire trick, lies in the volume. So Sankul Capital does this. So when I talk about the entire exciting journey of government of India, the one thing which you would all say is, where is credit? Does opening of an account automatically ensure that credit is available to you on tap? Does it? Actually, no. So credit is the tricky part. Credit is, even now today you go to take any credit, whatever amount, they will ask you for your CIBIL score. They will ask you for your, credit card transactions, whatever digital prints you have left by way of digital transaction or by way of bank transactions or by credit card, everything. They will look at it. They will look at your CIBIL score. Only then they will consider. But think of a person who's never even had an account. Now you opened an account. It's a zero balance account. He is not having that much money that he can go and, save, put that amount in some bank for some time. Any which way he wants to take it out the next morning. So he's not going to have. So there is not going to be any digital print for him ever. He is never going to be considered a bankable person by the bank. So what is the kind of help that we can do for these kind of people? This is what Sankul does. So Sankul actually works with the poorest of people in the remotest of area, and we create a credit history for them. We make them bankable. First, we make them bankable as a group, then as an individual. And once they become bankable as an individual, believe me, they are already in the mainstream. They have come to the mainstream. And then, you don't really have to do much. They will do on their own. So very briefly, I'll explain what we do at Sankul is that we form self-help groups of women, and we give them training, capacity building. We make them, weekly meeting is what they have to attend and save 10 rupees. That is the small amount which they have to save, And people do wonder, 10 rupees a week means 40 rupees a month. Once they do it for 3 months, then the bank gives them a loan of 1 lakh rupees. You'll wonder why. Like, how is like this 10 rupees even mattering? But the 10 rupees, you should view it not as a 10 rupee, that you view as her intention to be and her determination to be a part of the ecosystem. So she is attending a meeting regularly and coming and depositing the 10 rupees. So the worth of the 10 rupees is far above whatever it is. So once they get the first dosage of 1 lakh rupee, then the groups themselves, decide who would take that money. And because of our training, capacity building, they know how to prioritize. They will ask the person who is maximum needy, most needy, will be the person who will be taking the loan. And they will also do a due diligence on their own to see whether she is in a position to pay back. They will not recommend somebody some big amount which will put her in a debt trap. That's the beauty of group enterprise. This like kind of a group enterprise. Without doing a business, it's like a group enterprise. Each one watching for other one. They are watching for each other's back. So once you return that 1 lakh rupee, then the next dosage will happen at 2.5 lakh rupees. Then at 6 lakhs. So the amount also keeps increasing as per their requirements, as per their aspirations. And all these transactions are recorded digitally. So all the groups grading is being done digitally. The meetings minutes are maintained digitally. The amount 10 rupee which they save, which goes to the bank, this is done. So this is what is called a credit history. This is what the banks or the NBFCs or whoever is a formal lending agency, that is what they want to know. Are they used to dealing with cash? I mean, like, are they used to dealing with money? Do they pay the money in time? Do they return money if they borrow? So this is what, and based on this, once they reach that 6 lakh level, then the CIBIL score authority start collecting their scores, and they know whether they want it or not, they will go and give it to them. And the banks will now I have several group members, the banks will start chasing them and offer them products like, see, we have consumer products loan, we have two-wheeler loan products, we have housing loan products, why don't you take it? So this is what is the beauty. Earlier they were chasing the banks were not allowing them an entry, and now they are chasing these, because the banks also realize there is tremendous wealth only at the bottom of the pyramid, only it is highly scattered. All somebody has to do is kind of put it together and just aggregate it. That is needed. So that has been made possible by this ecosystem. When we talk about some very large projects, we're always talking about it broken in very small parts only. Nobody, not even government of India, can do any project, a very large product. You say, okay, we have adopted SDG 1, we will be no poverty in 2047. No, government of India cannot say that with confidence, unless it's all broken in small places, and whoever can do their role. It's like a relay race. Government of India will do something, give you some platform, then the private sector will do something more, then they will hand it over to somebody else, and then it will probably come to change makers, and then they will do something else, and that is how the journey continues. So as I said, what we have our Bank of Baroda as our partners, and we have entered into a memorandum of understanding with them for formation and credit linkage of 10,000 self-help groups, and an assured loan of 6 lakh rupees per group by the third year. So that means you're talking about an assured credit flow of 600 crores to this group. So as I said, it is a question of aggregation. It is a question of thinking big and planning at that level. We have, this whole thing is rolled out based on a memorandum of understanding. I'm working in Mewat region. There is a place called Hatin Block where we are working, where our office is. And even with my background of NRLM and with my bureaucrat stamp, I would not find it easy to go to the bank and convince them to work on this pattern. I can give them the best groups, but they will not give me the credit unless it is an agreement which has happened at the top. So that is the level at which you have to think, to visualize, to work, to roll out. So we started working actually seriously. Last 9 months is what the credit started flowing. So we have, around more than 13.8 crore rupee has flown to that area. Currently, we have about 7 crore rupees outstanding loan. And this year we are very confident of cracking about 37 to 38 crore rupees, credit to the poor. So earlier the entire Palwal district would do 6 crores, 5.5 crores. And now I'm talking about one small block, which we are confident of doing 37, 38 crores. That is the beauty of financial inclusion. Now, with what has happened is we have filled that critical gaps. As I said, Government of India is trying to lay all those essential things, and the critical gap we found that credit is not flowing. Even if they are financially included, credit is not flowing. So we decided to make sure that credit flows to them. And with credit is a game changer. So now, like we have, as I have explained, the banks think of them as bankable clients. They approach them and tell them, we are going to offer you this loan product. And then there is constant pressure on my staff. Aap aur groups kab de rahe ho? Please give us more groups. Please give us more groups. And the best part is that we have nil NPA. See, would anybody believe that the poorest of poor who are living from hand to mouth, they will never ever miss their installment, even on a weekly basis? So not even an overdue will be there. That is the strength of inclusion. The poor are there. You will never find any poor person being willful defaulter. You will not find them. And they do not even have that, that kind of planning and that kind of wicked thinking that we should defraud somebody. उस तरह का thought भी नहीं होता है. So this is the beauty, and this is the gap which I have filled. So I think somebody did ask, when will we feel that FI is complete? So see, the FI will be complete. This also, I think some expert study will say, you cannot expect 100% FI. You cannot. See, there are some stretch of people. You're talking about, say, some wives. Okay, they don't work. Their husband is having an account. She will be content not having another account. Okay. Similarly, there are, like in some religion, banking is also considered haram, payment of interest and all that. That is, so those kind of people will not. So what we are saying is there will not be 100% inclusion ever, but reaching 90 plus is considered 100% FI, financial inclusion. And my endeavor, or what I want to promote through all the channels, is that merely opening an account, merely Jam was good when it happened. It is still happening. It's wonderful. But then you have to take the next step. You have to ensure credit goes. Without credit, this whole thing is meaningless. So if you talk about, there are, they say that there are 4 pillars of financial inclusion. The first is called financial literacy. That is where I thought, if we have change makers who can volunteer their services, and if they can speak to the people in their own language, not the language which they have learned, not the MBA, not English, not the language which they normally use with their friends, but reduce it to that level where they can. So financial literacy is the first pillar. The second pillar is technology. Technology, absolute must. All our transactions are being digitally captured. Digitally, we don't do even 1 rupee cash handling, no leakage. So technology also has to keep pace. So again, I see some very good change makers' role in studying the model and coming up with more and more impactful technology. If at all I can do a task easier than whatever I was doing yesterday, that is a step forward. And they would be, companies would be willing to pay for it. It need not even necessarily be subsidized. The subsidy part can come from the government of India. But there is, people will be willing for it. If at all I'm able to earn more by, collapsing something, some kind of steps with technology, I will adopt it. I will pay. Because I'm going to save that kind of a money. So the second pillar is technology. Again, where I feel change makers, especially the really qualified ones, or the ones who have a good idea, they can really come forward and think about it. The third is like recognized the entire world. It started with India, but now the entire world recognizes it. That is women inclusion. So women inclusion is something, our program is completely women-based. We make only women self-help groups. And why women inclusion is that women are considered much better paymasters. They are more credit-worthy, and if they give their word, they will stick to it. So, and they also care for the family. Once you try to build a women's capacity, the entire family is empowered. And the last one is oversight. It's called regulation, oversight. That is very strict monitoring of all the activities which is happening. This is an entirely cash-based or a money-based arena where the chances of fraud, chances of leakage are very, very high. Literally, you lose attention, you can easily lose millions. Now you do see these frauds, account frauds and phishing and all that, it's just a momentary lapse of attention and you can lose so much of money. So what I'm essentially saying is that all these 4 pillars, Sankul Capital is strong on all these 4. So we have all these 4 pillars. Our program has been designed that it fulfills all the 4 pillars, which is your financial literacy, which we do through capacity building, continuous. If we never take it, our village representative is stationed in the village continuously. She stays and lives there. So whenever they have a problem, all they have to do is just go to her house. That's all, nothing else. So that financial literacy happens. Technology we are using in a big way. Our mentors are SKDRDP. Dr. Virendra Hegde was also a part of this. I really loved hearing him. He is also an investor in my company. So they have in-house. They have mastered this entire process in the last 30 years. So they have developed an in-house technology. And there is a third-party, technology service provider who monitors. So all the wings have also been separated, so that there is like if at all one particular wing is not doing its work, the other can easily catch it. So this has been designed in such a manner. The technology itself is coming from 2 directions. So we have a third-party technology. That guy is watching with a hawk's eye, because his payment is also based on the number of transactions and whatever, based on results. So Sankul Capital actually does all this, and we have achieved a nil NPA. We will now be moving to the next block. As I said, this is entire Palwal district doing 8 crore and one block doing 37 crores. You can just see the multiplicative effect, what is the potential. And I'm saying that even I have not exhausted the entire market, or even I have not touched the potential. So what I can do is, there is just a 3 minutes video, okay, that you all see.
समूह में हम 2014 से जुड़े हुए हैं। इससे हमारा सामाजिक विकास हुआ है, आर्थिक विकास हुआ है हमारा, और इससे हमारा आर्थिक स्तर बढ़ा है। पहले हम अपने घरों में ही रहते थे, लेकिन आज हम यहाँ जॉब भी करते हैं, हमें जॉब भी मिली है, आजीविका भी मिली है, और इससे हमारे जो जीने का स्तर था, पहले हम केवल अपने लिए ही जीते थे, अब हम जैसे 12 महिलाएं अपने ग्रुप में, उन सब के बारे में सोचते हैं, सबके बारे में सोचते हैं और उनकी हेल्प करते हैं, एक दूसरे की, हमारा विश्वास बढ़ा है, संगठन बना है। हम सभी बहनों ने अपना अपना काम किया है, जैसे सिलाई का, या किसी बहन को मशीन की जरूरत, कपड़ा धोने मशीन की जरूरत है, या चारा काटने की, या किसी को भैंस वैस खरीदनी है, मतलब हम इसी में अपने पैसों को इस्तेमाल करते हैं और उसी के हिसाब से आसान किस्तों में पैसा वापस देते हैं। उसके बाद पहला लेन देन हुआ जो पहले पिछले मंथ का, उसके बारे में बात करते हैं, चर्चा करते हैं उसके बारे में, फिर किसी को आगे लोन की अप्लाई करनी है तो उसके बारे में बात करते हैं। हर सिटी में ब्यूटी पार्लर का कोर्स किया था, उसके बाद वहाँ थोड़ा मेरे को हौसला मिला, यानी कि कॉस्मेटिक सामान की दुकान में पढ़ाई। उसके बाद मेरी और हिम्मत बढ़ती है, इसलिए मैंने बच्चों के कपड़े। सारी महिलाएं एक जैसी सोच वाली नहीं होंगी, तो उनमें कुछ महिला तो ऐसी होती है जो सीधे हमारी बात को समझ लेती है, लेकिन कुछ महिला ऐसी होती है जिनके काफी सवाल होते हैं, जैसे कि हमने पहले समूह खोले थे, पैसा डूब गए, हमारे पैसा लेके भग गए, या किसी अन्य स्कीम से जुड़ी रहती हैं, उन्हें भी वो कहते हैं कि इस तरह में कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ। आपके जो हम समूह आपके खुलवा रहे हैं, इसमें आपका पैसा होगा, आपके खाते में होगा, आपके नाम पर होगा, आप इन्हें खुद ही सब कुछ करोगे। हम तुम्हारे पैसे से कोई लेन देन नहीं, कोई मतलब नहीं है, हम कोई स्कीम नहीं लेके आए हैं, हम तुम्हारी सहायता तुम्हारे द्वारा ही करवाना चाहते हैं और तुम्हें तुम्हारी पैरों पर खड़ा करके आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं। अब हमारे पास आगे कि उनको रोजगार कैसे दें, तब जाके हमने ये जो प्रोडक्ट बनाना है के बारे में सोचा, और फिर हमने मार्केट एनालिसिस करी कि किस तरीके का प्रोडक्ट हम बना के इन ग्रुप के मेंबरों से बनवा के मार्केट में डाल सकते हैं।
So I think with that I come to the end of my talk.